I think everyone has that one game that their brain completely ignores. You know, it's a masterpiece of the industry, one that will change your worldview. For me, that game was Nier Automata. It was created by Yoko Taro, a man who is so unlike a typical game designer that it feels like he's from another reality altogether. A man who literally put himself into the game and at the same time created one of the most philosophical stories in the history of video games. Do I want to play this game? Absolutely, but every time I remembered that it has 26 endings, I always found a million reasons to put it off. You know, there are two types of gamers. The first type watched Berserk. They beat the Dark Souls series without taking damage. They mastered Sekiro, and they know the lore of Elden Ring better than their own life story. But most importantly, they learn how to dodge their father's belt with perfect timing. The second type is simpler. They just watched Evangelion. That's why they play anything with giant robots, anime girls, and even the tiniest hint of an existential crisis. And let's be honest, each of them has watched a 1-hour breakdown of the hospital scene. Since I consider myself a hardcore gamer, when I learned that Yoko Taro drew inspiration from Evangelion while creating Nier Automata, I decided I had to play it as soon as possible. First, I want to talk about how the game itself was made. The budget was small, and it was aimed more at a general audience than at genre fans. I'll explain that in more detail later, but let me start from the beginning. I'm the kind of player who loves high difficulty, or maybe I'm just a masochist, who knows. So I set the difficulty to the highest level, and you know what? I spent 2 hours in the tutorial and still didn't finish it. Everything one shot at me. Any shot, any scene, any mistake meant death. After every death the tutorial started over. You couldn't skip the dialogue every time. You had to listen to the same thing again and again, as if the game were testing your psyche. And only after lowering the difficulty was I able to get through it. But the most important thing is not the difficulty, but the tutorial itself. At first you learn to move and shoot in a shoot 'em up format. Then it suddenly throws you into run and gun. But closer to the end you fight robots in slasher style combat. Throughout the tutorial the game constantly changes genre, camera and tone. You never get the chance to settle in. Because of limited funding it would have been hard to fully develop different genres within one game. But making a lot of different elements without deeply developing each one is cheaper. This may sound like complete nonsense, but it works. Usually, tutorials are boring because they explain the obvious. Here, I couldn't even predict what the game would be like, because of all the genre shifts that kept me from getting bored. The changes in genre, camera and gameplay create a ton of emotion, and it feels genius. After the tutorial, it's time to explore the game. And I should say this, I don't like traditional open worlds. When they throw a giant map at you with hundreds of quests and say, here's 500 hours of gameplay, crafting, grinding, activities, loot. I don't want to move real life into a game. I usually drop those projects after a couple of hours, because behind all that scale hides monotony. But in Nier Automata, the open world works differently. Again, because of the small budget, unusual design choices were made. The world feels empty, and that is exactly the point. There are no endless markers, no grinding for the sake of grinding. There is a sense of a planet taken over by aliens where war is constantly happening, but life still continues. The world becomes not just a game element, but a place of a real story, tied together by the game itself into a separate work of art. For those who want to dive deeper, there are side quests here. I never understood how people could enjoy optional quests in games. The main story is always more interesting, and side content in particular usually just exists to stretch the playtime. But Cyberpunk showed me what good side quests can be. In fact, there, until I had completed all activities outside the main story, I wouldn't even start the main mission. In Nier, I felt something similar. There wasn't a single side quest that simply repeated another. Each one was unique and revealed a little more about the few characters, locations, and the story itself. To show you how well developed they are, I'll give one example. I was doing karate challenge. Each time, the robot became stronger. After beating him twice, I reached the black belt stage. He was level 40, while I was much lower. I thought, fine, I'll level up and come back later. But after one of the story missions, the quest just disappeared. And then I understood the point was not to level up, the point was to defeat a stronger opponent, not just make the numbers match, to understand your own limits. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but no tower climb in yet another open world ever makes me think like that. Nier showed me how valuable side quests can be, that they can become something more than optional content made to stretch playtime. I won't talk about the main story, not because I'm afraid of spoiling it, but because I haven't finished the game, I haven't seen all the key endings, and I haven't gone deep into the other parts of the series, and I don't want to describe only the surface of the deepest iceberg in this universe. The game was created by Platinum Games, the makers of Bayonetta and Metal Gear Rising, masterpieces of the slasher genre. Unlike those games, Nier has a two-button combat system. The immediate question is why? Why simplify the combat system when Bayonetta and Rising already exist? It was done on purpose so that everyone could play the game. Casual players pressing two buttons and destroying everything alive, and hardcore players too. That's how it works. On low difficulty, everything alive gets annihilated. There are even auto chips that do everything for you, but on high difficulty you barely even have the option to lock onto a target, and enemy attacks almost one-shot you. I experienced it myself, and it's awesome. In other games I hate difficulty selection. On high difficulty there's nothing special about it. Enemies just have more HP and damage, maybe fewer resources. Here though, the damn gameplay changes depending on the chosen difficulty. That's brilliant, honestly. I kept thinking, why don't other games do this? And then I realized they do, just not the ones I played. The game is polished where it matters. Talking about build crafting in Nier in the usual terms is difficult, because in essence there are no builds here. Yes, the game has weapons, yes, you can upgrade them, but I played almost the entire game with the starting swords, upgrading them only to 2 out of 4 possible levels, and the game never once made me feel like I was doing something wrong. There are chips, a whole customization system that in theory lets you completely change your playstyle. You can make your attacks send out shock waves, you can turn dodging into a dash across half the arena, you can make a build focused on auto-healing damage or control. But the most important thing is that the game never forces you to do any of that. I only understood how the chips actually work near the end of my playthrough. And that wasn't a problem, because Nier doesn't demand optimization from you. It doesn't ask, are you sure you built your character correctly? It just lets you play. Want to experiment and break the gameplay? Go ahead. Want to ignore numbers and stats completely? That works too. And strangely enough, both options are valid. That's the strength of the system. Customization here exists not as a requirement, but as a possibility. It expands the game without imposing a playstyle on you. You play the way you feel. The game adapts to you and doesn't try to tell you that you're wrong. Nier Automata is called a masterpiece, not because it is perfect. On the contrary, it has plenty of rough edges. A strange camera, uneven pacing, simple combat, an empty world. But that is exactly where its strength lies. This is a game where every element serves the overall feeling, rather than trying to impress the player individually. The game doesn't compete with you, it exists beside you like a friend. Nier is a rare case where limitations became style. A small budget, design compromises, simplified mechanics. None of that is hidden or disguised. It all gets turned into a coherent work of art where emptiness and strangeness are part of the experience. It doesn't hold your hand, but it also doesn't punish you for not knowing. It doesn't force you to play correctly, and it doesn't explain everything directly. You can play it superficially and still get a great game, or you can dig deeper and get an experience that stays with you for a long time. And most importantly, Nier Automata trusts the player. It isn't afraid that you won't understand something. It isn't afraid that you'll feel uncomfortable. It isn't afraid to be strange. This is not a game made for everyone. This is a game made honestly. That's exactly why Nier Automata is a masterpiece.